Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to make the super simple camp stove that will last for many, many years. You just need any kind of tuna can, empty tin can like this. You can have one much smaller or much larger. You're going to need to cut a piece of wood, as I've done here. I've cut this branch off. It needs to be solid wood and it needs to be in good shape. You don't want a piece of rotten wood to do this. It won't work with rotten wood. So what you're going to need is this right here. This simple setup will be the first step in creating this simple camp stove. Now next, I'm in my little fire pit here. You'll need to take whatever can you have and you need to put the piece of wood that you've cut and flip it over. You're going to want to puncture a hole in the back of it, and you can do this with any size can. You have to also remember is this wood is going to shrink up by at least 10%. So you may actually want to have one that's really close to the same size. This is going to shrink up maybe another 10 to 20% there. So if you want one that fits properly, get a larger can and then downsize to a smaller size can. So just create the fire in your fire pit and then put this upside down on the ground with a hole in it so the wood gases can escape. The fire will be built all around your can. You'll have a small hole here to let those wood gases escape so you can convert this piece of hardwood into a piece of charcoal. And that's going to be the key, is creating some really good quality charcoal each time you do this. Now I've spent most of the afternoon using this right here because my chainsaw is quite dull and my gas chainsaw would have a hard time cutting through these. It needs to be sharp, and I'll get around to that one of these days. But I've cut several pieces here for future charcoal that I'm making to make these camp stoves. But first, what I want to show you is I've done this process before. Now this is just an ordinary small unused paint can, and I took some small limbs, and it was from a hardwood tree, and I cut them into short lengths. And what I want to show you here is this simple paint can can be used to make charcoal. Now I punctured holes all on the top of it to allow those wood gases to escape. You're going to build the fire completely around this and make sure that the coals and everything is hot. It may take anywhere from 3 to 5 hours to completely convert it. As you can see, I've got charcoal in here. I just took ordinary limbs. If you were to let this burn in a fire, it would completely burn up and become nothing but ash, so it wouldn't be usable charcoal. So you can use something like a paint can. I have these small unused paint cans that I've purchased. I'll put a link in the description. So you could use something like this. These size right here, this is before I use it, and this is after. You can see that it's been in a fire for a long time. You can use, as I said earlier, this was a chicken breast can. You can go down to the size of a tuna can. So whatever size you're using, just remember you're flipping it over and don't allow the flame to get to it. Puncture a small hole again, as I said previously, to allow the wood gases to escape. But I'm going to show you a jumbo size charcoal device that I made that makes a huge amount of charcoal that will probably last you a lifetime on these small camp stoves. That works great. So let me show you that. Now this is a feed bucket I'd picked up from, I believe, Tractor Supply. If they sell these online, I would put a link to it, but it'd probably be cheaper to get this because the shipping costs would be prohibitive. But you can see I've made a huge amount of charcoal in there. I punctured holes in the top of the lid to allow the wood gases to escape, built a fire completely around it, and I created all this charcoal. All this is hardwood, no softwood, no pine. So just remember, when you're making charcoal, it's best to use a hardwood tree of any type. I'd cut some limbs and I just turned all of those limbs into charcoal. So this is going to make a great portable camp stove for me. Now I wanted to demonstrate the various sizes here. You could go something like this. Largest can is actually a pineapple juice can. I've taken a step drill bit and I've drilled holes all the way around it to allow some of the heat to escape. And I've also got some of these little L brackets. You can attach these on the outside here and just put maybe a little gap there, maybe quarter an inch to half an inch, and you can put 4 of these around the outside of the can. I'm hoping you can see that properly, but use a self-tapping screw where you can put 4 different ones there, and then you could actually turn this not only into a heater but a camp stove. So that would work on this size, this smaller size can. I think this was maybe a larger soup can, unused paint can that had no paint in it ever. Again, you could do the same thing by attaching these little brackets to the side and turn this into a stove. And even something as small as this, and you could store these because they can become kind of messy and have a little bit of soot on the outside of them. Just put them in a larger, once they've cooled down, put them inside of a gallon size freezer bag, and then you'll have a camp stove ready to go. But I'm going to demonstrate maybe on this one and maybe the smallest one how easy it is to turn this into a stove and or a heater. Now before I move on to that demonstration, I just wanted to show you this small minnow bucket. It's an antique minnow bucket, but this will also be perfect. I found this on eBay and I've seen 3 or 4 of them over the years, but they're not that expensive, and it's just something that some people might actually throw away. But this would be perfect for using to make charcoal. It's already vented, so you don't have to worry about flames getting to it. You can put all the wood you want to in there, put it in the fire. Of course, it's going to discolor it as it did my larger bucket, but this would be perfect for making a lot of charcoal. And if I can find some of these online being sold currently, of course, if they're painted, don't use them. Try to use ones that are unpainted. But if I find one online, I'll put the link in the description. All right, so let me demonstrate this. I'm just going to put some of the charcoal, and I'm just going to pick through it. And of course, some pieces are larger than others. This one's a little bit too big to put in there. And I'm just going to put the charcoal. The charcoal will absorb our fuel and help it burn slower and more evenly. So you'll get a better and longer burn from each of these. I'm going to take the top off of the paint can. This one already has charcoal that I made previous. Put a little bit of charcoal into our can here. This one a little bit smaller, so it may be harder to find the right size charcoal to fit in there, but I'll just kind of pick through some of the charcoal I made. And again, you can reuse this charcoal over and over. Once you put the fuel in there, this is not going to completely turn to a ash right away. Over time, yes, it's going to break down, but it's going to last a pretty good long time. So each time you use it, once it's cooled down, you can store it away in like a freezer bag, and then that way you'll have a camp stove. So again, we've got maybe not enough in that one, but I'm just going to keep adding it, and then I'll show you exactly how to turn each one of these into a camp stove by starting with our smallest size can, not a tuna can, but just a chicken breast can. But again, you're not restricted by size. You could go down to the smallest can you want to. If your camping gear, you can't have a lot of weight in it. Some people try to go camping or hiking with the smallest amount of weight, so you could go down even smaller than this chicken breast can if you needed to use this as an emergency stove when you have nothing but wood that's wet from rainy situations. So this could be a lifesaver on the trail if you're in a rainstorm and you can't get a fire started. So keeping one of these in a freezer bag can really make a difference for you. All right, so I've tried to position the camera where you can see me adding the fuel, and what I'm using for fuel is just 70% alcohol, and I'm going to add some to each container. Not a lot, maybe a few ounces to each one, and show you how great this works. Again, you keep the alcohol stored separately in your gear, so you can add it as needed. It's a little bit messy using this little squeeze bottle, but I'll try to do it as safely as possible. I'm going to clean up the mess I've made there before I light each one. So as you can see, some of these will burn for quite a bit longer depending on how much alcohol you have. You have this one, which would turn into a really nice heater if you're on the trail and you're not able to start a fire because of snow or rain or anything like that. You could have this stored away in your gear and it'll make a huge difference. So let's light each one of them. I'm going to start with the left side. So as you can see, this would make a huge difference if you were on the trail and you didn't have a way to have a fire because of a really rainy situation. You can cook and heat with these. So let's do a heat test from our smallest chicken can holder, about 366 degrees on the outside. Paint can, small paint can, 375 there at the top, 390. And our large soup can, about 260, not quite as hot, it's jumping around a little bit there. And then our large can, the pineapple juice can, we're looking at 320. So all of these could be used as an emergency heater, an emergency stove. Of course, as I said earlier, you can get these painted and unpainted. You could have them in stainless steel. You can attach them by using self-tapping metal screws. Put 4 or 5 all the way around the outside of whichever size can you have, and then you have a place to set your cooking gear on top as you burn. So these work great as an emergency stove and an emergency heater when there's huge amounts of moisture in the ground and you can't get any wood to burn. These will all work perfectly, and you can use them over and over. Just make sure that you put them out safely. You can put another can on top of them or just let them completely burn out. So I've let them burn for a solid 30 minutes and I'm starting to see some of the fuel being burned up. But my favorite size is these small chicken breast cans. They're a little bit larger than a tuna can, but they are great for cooking and heating in an emergency. I keep one of these in my backpack inside of a freezer bag, so I don't have to worry if I come across a situation where it's been raining for multiple days and I need to start a fire, cook something, or heat something. So this one I would absolutely recommend if you're trying to keep all of your camping gear as light as possible. But again, depending on your personal situation, you can vary the size here, and these make excellent stoves and heaters. Now I'm taking one of my camping mugs that I use for making coffee and other dehydrated soups and things like that, and just set it on top of the large soup can where I've drilled holes, which allows some of the oxygen to come in and some of the flame to continue. I've offset it a little bit there, but you can see it's starting to boil some water very, very quickly. So these work excellent as an emergency stove. And sometimes if I don't want to start a fire, if you have one of these in your backpack inside of a small container, along with your fuel, you can make a stove that cooks a meal very quickly without having to go and find firewood and tinder and all that stuff. So this just speeds the entire process up if you've been hiking all day and you want a quick meal made in just a matter of minutes. As you can see, we're getting a lot of steam there, and you could cook a dehydrated meal very quickly. So it is so easy to make these. It costs almost nothing. These cans you're going to be throwing away anyways. You can reuse them for this. Take some limbs from your yard, make sure they're hardwood, again, not softwood, not pine, nothing like that. And you can create this in any size container. You can use something like this as this extra large bucket, or you can go down to the size of the actual tuna can and just make sure you puncture that hole in there so the wood gases can escape. And in about 4 to 5 hours you can have some homemade charcoal, but it works great. You can cook on it. I'd recommend it for any type of camping trip because it makes it a lot more fun to something you've created yourself. However, I would say I've never tried using these to heat indoors, and I don't think I would, because I think you're going to have a little bit more with the charcoal. You're going to have some dangerous gases escaping. So these are for outdoor use only. So guys, on my channel I often talk about this in the wintertime, is camping and hiking, one of my favorite topics. I also talk about emergency heaters and things like that, so you can take a look at the catalog of different types of heaters there. I'll put a link right here to this video I made about creating a large amount of charcoal, so take a look at that video as well. I really appreciate you watching. If you got something out of it, I hope you'll leave a thumbs up. That helps the channel grow and helps the channel spread across YouTube. If you'd really like to support the channel, I have a Patreon page, so you can link there, look at some downloadable material and some free material as well. So some of it's paid, some of it's free, so take a look there. You can become a free member or a paid member, but that really does help the channel grow. So guys, I really appreciate you watching. Have a great day.